Welcome, everyone, to Food Safety for the Real World. I'm Chef Leslie Owens, and I work on culinary content for the partnership. I'm joined today by my co-host, who many of you already know, Katie Weston, the partnership's community engagement manager, and of course, Dr. Ellen Shoemaker. We'll give a little more information about her in a minute. Next slide, please. As you can see, we have a lot of ground to cover today on this extremely popular topic. First, we'll be giving you a little background, and then we'll hear from Dr. Ellen Shoemaker about creating videos with food safety steps. And finally, we'll introduce you to some exciting new resources. Next slide, please. Just a reminder that we have two ways for you to communicate with us on this webinar. First, please add your questions to the Q&A to make it easier for us to see them. And second, you can use the chat function for comments, and that's where we'll be dropping any links. Next slide, please. For those of you who are looking for CEUs, we have a bunch of options for you. We'll have links in the chat. You'll get an email tomorrow, definitely. And you can also download what you need at fightback.org in the resources tab. Those of you who are looking for NCHEC CEUs, please make sure you complete the online questionnaire by April 27th. Next slide, please. If you're not familiar with the partnership, we're an active network of 13,000 health and food safety educators with 40 partner organizations, along with our federal partners at the CDC, FDA, and USDA, all working together to advance consistent, science-based behavioral health messaging. Next slide, please. Did you know that every year in the US, 48 million people get sick from foodborne illness, commonly called food poisoning? 128,000 are hospitalized, and 3,000 people die from eating contaminated food. The core four food safety practices, clean, separate, cook, and chill, are effective ways to prevent foodborne illness and the spread of germs. Next slide, please. Let's see. Now I'm going to turn it over to Katie Weston, our community engagement manager, and she's going to give you a little history on the Safe Recipe Style Guide. Take it away, Katie.
Thank you, Leslie. And hi, everyone. So what you see on this slide is a screenshot of the saferecipeguide.org website, which hosts all of our Safe Recipe Guide resources. I know many of you are familiar with the Safe Recipe Guide already. Some of you may have used it, but we wanted to give a quick overview today for those that aren't familiar, and then we'll get into sharing our new resource, which is the Safe Recipe Guide for video creators. So if I can get the next slide. The Safe Recipe Guide began with some observational studies of consumer cooking habits. And there was one study in particular, the one that you can see on the slide there, published in the Journal of Food Protection in 2016. And that was kind of the foundation of the guide. This study recognized that in spite of many different efforts on the part of many different groups to improve food safety among consumers, there was still a deficit in the actual practice of safe behaviors at home. And so the study examined whether introducing food safety steps into a recipe itself would improve food safety behaviors during food preparation. Next slide, please. So the results of the study were very clear. And you can see a couple of the statistics here on this slide. It was observed that participants who received recipes with the food safety instructions had significantly improved food safety behavior. So for example, with hand washing, 90% of people washed their hands when the food safety steps were included, whereas only 59% washed their hands when they weren't included. And there were similar results for thermometer use. So when we saw this study, it led to a really big idea for the partnership, which is if recipes can serve as a food safety behavior changer for people's behaviors. So we had to think, how do we get more recipes to include those food safety instructions? Next slide. So what we did was we created a guide for how to insert food safety instructions into a recipe so that it could be done in a consistent manner. Originally, we have only targeted written recipes, but as you'll hear a little bit later from Leslie today, we're now starting to we're now releasing a guide that's for video creators, those that create recipe videos. Next slide. So here's a quick snapshot of the style guide itself. So on the left side is the guide. It's very simple. It focuses on a few food safety behaviors that could make the biggest impact in food safety. And on the right is a safe internal temperatures chart that's included. We could have added many different food safety steps into the guide, but again, we wanted to focus on the ones that were going to have the biggest impact on consumers at home who are cooking their food. And I'll note that it is available in both English and Spanish on the website. So you can also get a copy of the guide in Spanish if you're writing recipes in Spanish. Next slide. So as we've continued to grow the Safe Recipe Style Guide and the resources that go along with it, we've added a few things. And one is a safe recipe lesson for middle school students that was released last year. It was reviewed by a curriculum specialist. It has a teacher's guide, and it's aligned with national health and science education standards. And it comes in two formats. There's an online virtual version that students can go through entirely online. And then there's a version that you can download and use in the classroom. Next slide. So in addition to the guide and the middle school lesson, we've also been gathering recipes that already have the safe recipe steps inside of them using the Safe Recipe Style Guide. So on our website, we have a database, if you will, of safe recipes. You can see a screenshot. There's appetizers and desserts and side dishes. And we have released 2 cookbooks that are available on the website for free. You can download. There's the Safe Recipe Cookbook, which is what you can see there. It has 10 30-minute meal recipes. And there's a healthy lunch cookbook that has 14 kid-friendly lunch recipes that were made by kids for kids. So that's a brief introduction to the Safe Recipe Style Guide, and I will turn it back over to Leslie.
Okay, so we have our first poll question. And the question that we would like to know is, do you create recipe videos? Michelle has added the little poll question, so you can fill that out, and we'll get our results in just a minute. And I see just a couple, while you guys are filling out the poll questions, I've seen a couple of questions in the chat. Just a reminder to add questions to the Q&A. It makes it a little easier for us to see them. But one of the questions is, does the cookbook itemize carbs and other nutrients? We do have nutritional information in our second cookbook called The Healthy Lunch, which is the one that Katie talked about, that was created by kids for kids. So we do add nutritional information. Some of the earlier stuff doesn't have it. But anyway, answer to a poll question. So it looks like a lot of you are considering adding videos. And obviously those, very popular right now, and 31% of you are already making them. So that is great information. Thank you so much for participating. I'm seeing a lot of participation, and it's great. So last year, with prompts based on the Safe Recipe Style Guide, PFSE created a tool for use by people who develop video cooking demonstrations. At the time, the tool consisted of an explanation of why adding food safety steps is important, the food safety steps based on the Safe Recipe Style Guide that Katie just talked about, examples of visual food safety cues, and tips for creating a personal stock library. In order to ensure the new tool met the standards set by PFSE and its network of backfighters, a draft of the new Safe Recipe Style Guide for video creators was sent to experts in fields ranging from food safety to video creation. Interviews were conducted last year, February of 2021. We ask interviewees questions like, what are your thoughts? What would you change? What do you like best? And if you were making a video, would you use these instructions? Next slide, please. Our interviews gave us many incredible ideas and great information. We took that information and identified 3 big takeaways. Everyone loves the idea of having these new tools and said it's badly needed in the food video realm because video isn't going away anytime soon. Different types of cooking videos like television style shows, hands and pans videos, or even just image montages are gaining in popularity. Second, food bloggers and influencers may not have formal culinary or food safety backgrounds. A new resource combined with a library would make it easier for them to identify and include food safety steps in their recipes. But bloggers and influencers, of course, are not the only ones out there creating content, as we just saw in our poll. Many of you, our backfighters, are already creating videos in your jobs teaching cooking and food safety. And finally, something that was unanimously agreed upon is a library of stock images and video clips to make food safety steps as easy to use as possible was an absolute must. So we decided to focus on these 3 takeaways and have spent the last year working to bring them to life. You'll see the new Safe Recipe Style Guide for video creators, along with the new Food Safety Stock Library very soon. So be patient with me. Next slide, please. As a content creator, there are a number of benefits to adding food safety steps to recipe videos. Number 1, it adds value to your content. It shows viewers you care about their health and provides followers with evidence-based guidance to improve the quality of their own cooking. Next slide, please. Now, you may have questions about how to integrate recipes with food safety steps, especially into social media posts. So we've brought you someone with answers. I'd like to introduce you to our guest speaker, Dr. Ellen Shoemaker. Ellen is an extension associate at North Carolina State University, where she directs outreach for Safe Plates, which is North Carolina State Extension's family of evidence-based food safety programming and resources for retail, community, and home-based food safety. She designs, implements, and evaluates food safety messages throughout the farm to fork continuum. With her team, she also develops and provides food safety programs to food retailers, consumers, farmers markets, and other community groups. Take it away, Ellen.
Thanks, Leslie. You can go ahead and move to the next slide. So thank you so much for having me today. And as Leslie was saying, I lead the outreach for the Safe Plates program. And so we develop a variety of food safety programming and resources. And so this includes traditional training programs that you might see in person or online, but a lot of it includes engagements on social media. So pretty much any social media platform you can think of, including videos, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. And our goal as part of the Safe Plates program is to really incorporate the best science that's available while still being accessible and easy to understand. And as science communicators, you know how challenging that can be, but we do a variety of videos, social media, as well as articles and in-person trainings. And I'll talk a little bit more about, with a special focus on our social media engagement here just a second. So next slide, please. So as we all know, probably from personal experience, social media continues to evolve and it has really changed a lot over the past few years. And so this is great for us as educators because it means that there are a lot of options for us as we create food safety education content and especially videos. And so something that I wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about today before getting into the actual incorporation of food safety tips into videos is thinking about your goal with your video and what platform you're using. And so I say that because different platforms have different means of reaching people, and the audience really varies by platform. And so depending on your goal, you may want to go with one platform over another. And what works on one platform may not necessarily work on another. And so if you think about Facebook versus Twitter versus Instagram versus TikTok, I know from our experience that our extension agents use Facebook a lot. And so that's something that we really try to stay active on, both just for posting information as well as other kind of FYIs about recalls and things of that nature. Whereas we have a different approach when sharing information on Twitter. That might be something that's a little bit more digging into the details of a recall or that an academic side of things. And our group has really started to use TikTok a lot more in the past year or so. I had gone almost the entire pandemic without downloading TikTok, and then I finally broke down and downloaded it when I started this position back in the fall. So now I'm on it. But when we think about developing videos specifically with food safety messaging, a video on TikTok is going to look a lot different from a video you may share on Reels or on YouTube. And so both it differs with length, thinking about ways that you want to get more reach. And I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. But if you go to the next slide, I did want to share an example with kind of our TikTok experience to date. So this is a TikTok that we've done. You can see Mary Yavalak, who's on the Safe Plates team here. So we have really started exploring TikTok as a means of communication for a variety of food safety things. So by that, we talk about maybe an outbreak or a recall. So recently we shared a TikTok video about the recall in infant formula, but we also might talk about just simple, straightforward messages for, a reminder to wash your hands and just try to put it to something new and interesting that'll catch people's attention. And this particular TikTok that we found really took off. So it reached 20,000 views in 2 days and continued to gain traction over the following 2 weeks after we posted it. So this particular story was very seasonally relevant, and I think that's what helps draw the attention in. So it was about, there was some kind of magazine cover story that had this cute decoration with caramel candy apples. And so they stuck these, you can see twigs just from outside into the apples. And so we used that opportunity to talk about various things that are food safe or not, various hazards. And we also talked about an outbreak associated with caramel apples in the past. And so this really got attention, and I think it happened for a variety of ways because of being seasonally relevant. And then we also tried to incorporate language and images that would really catch the eye. If you go to the next slide. So to talk a little bit more about the platform, so that's something that really makes a difference. As I already talked about, the platform you select may differ based on the length of the video or the length of the message that you're trying to use, but it also really varies with the audience. And so something that you really want to consider before starting putting videos out, and it's great to see that a lot of you are at that point of getting to the development stage, is to think about who are you targeting, because depending on who you're targeting may influence which channels you want to use, especially because it can be a lot to take on all of the social media channels all at once, especially if you're just getting started. And so maybe picking one and going from there as you expand your output. And so something else to think about, that's also going to help frame your message better to fit the needs of the audience, and it'll help you use appropriate language that they'll identify with. So for example, a video that you're developing for a novice cook to share on TikTok, you're probably going to use different languages and ways of explaining things than if it's a video that's intended for people who are much more experienced in the kitchen. And so you're going to have a slightly different way of approaching that, as well as what you cover in the video and how you might think about presenting that food safety information. You also want to think about timing. And when I talk about that, I mean timing in a couple of different ways. So first, the timing of when you want the person to see the video. And by that, I mean, are you posting a video that's just a really quick summary of a recipe as a person is frantically scrolling through Pinterest and trying to figure out what ingredients they still have on their fridge, because you're going to have a much shorter frame of time to reach someone with potential food safety information, versus if you're creating a video or something where people might just be kind of browsing through YouTube and relaxing at the end of a long day and just watching cooking or videos just to relax, and might have a little bit more time to watch something. And so with that, a TikTok video is going to be a lot shorter compared to, another more in-depth recipe video. So if we'll move to the next slide. So here Michelle is going to play a video for us. So this is something, while she's pulling that up, this is something that our group pulled together, and just wanted to show you alongside a couple of other examples that Leslie and Katie are going to talk about later, that is really going to show kind of how you can incorporate these food safety tips into a video, and that doesn't need to be long. So if we can go ahead and play that, Michelle. All right, thanks, Michelle. And so while she's pulling up the slides here, there are a few different things that I wanted to point out that we incorporated. So in case any of you weren't watching the clock too closely, hopefully you weren't, that video is about 1 minute and 20 seconds, so not long at all. And so a couple of things, the first thing that we really try to do when we incorporate food safety steps, but also just general instructions and information into our videos, is to add the text captions. So not only are you able to really draw the attention of the viewer and highlight certain things, you're also increasing the accessibility of the video. And so that's something that's important to consider. And text really goes another step further to really highlight what's important. So as you saw in that video, we highlighted the ingredients, but you could also use it to highlight the temperature you want to cook to. You could use it to call out directly washing hands, any of those types of things. So one thing that I've seen mentioned just in kind of general pushback maybe to incorporating food safety information, especially when it comes to hand washing, is that it takes too long to show or it's boring. And I think this video really demonstrates that. So as an example, what we just watched, there were 2 instances of hand washing, and so they were each about 7 to 10 seconds apiece. So for the total, that comes to 15 to 20 seconds of a 1 minute, 20-second video. And in combination with the fast-paced music and the kind of fast-paced nature of the video, I think that really wasn't too painful, hopefully, to watch through the hand washing portion of that. You can also cue the viewer in other ways. If you don't necessarily want to show an entire hand washing event, you could really shorten it. You could cut away to an image of just hands under a sink, or just show text again. Something else that we did in this video that can really help emphasize the importance of checking temperatures on foods is to, of course, show the action of using the food thermometer, but then also zooming in on the temperature so they can actually see the temperature showing up and registering on the thermometer. I think that also helps to really include the viewers in the experience of feeling like they were cooking it along with you. And it's just like, oh, that was easy. That didn't take long to check the temperature. That was so simple. And then something else that can be a cool thing once you get a little bit more practiced into making videos is to think about the idea of doing kind of a behind the scenes. And you could do this maybe in a side-by-side video, but thinking about how to incorporate, if you didn't want to necessarily take the time to show each step all of the way, you could have one video showing the process of making the recipe, but then on the other side you could show the behind the scenes of you washing your hands between making the ingredients, and all of the other steps that you're taking. So it can be a really cool way to pull people into the video making process and the cooking process, but also really highlight the food safety component and the importance of it. Something else that we also try to do that showed up in the other TikTok example that I showed is just including links to sources. Sometimes it's helpful for people to see the video and then see an opportunity to really validate what they see and what you're showing them, to have a reference point to see it incorporated elsewhere, and then they can think, oh, this is easy to do, it's normal to do, and it's something that I can easily do in my own videos. And so with that, I think we can move to the next slide. I have a link here if you want to learn more or follow us on one of our social media channels. I think we'll have time at the end for questions, but at this point, I'll just pass it back to Leslie.
All right. Thank you, Ellen. I know that I appreciate all this fantastic information. I've been excited to see your presentation now for a couple of weeks. I'm sure our attendees are excited too. Creating videos is new to many, and you've given us some great ideas to work with. Just as a reminder to those of you who may be creating videos in your work, that you do need to check with your organization on which social media channels are appropriate for your organization. There are some employers who don't allow certain social media channels, especially TikTok. So just make sure that before you create a video for a certain channel that you're actually allowed to use that channel through your organization. So now you might be wondering how to include food safety steps without going over the time limit imposed by those social media channels like TikTok and Instagram. We decided to take a video that we did in 2020 to show you how simple it is using a variety of methods like Ellen just used. For example, adjusting the playback speed, adding video, photo, or text prompts. So take a look, Michelle. Sorry about that. I started talking and I was still on mute. So as you can see, there's only a 3-second difference between a video without and with food safety steps. An inclusion of food safety messages doesn't take away from your recipe video, and in fact adds and empowers your followers with health information. So now we've gone over the history, and the research that went into creating the Safe Recipe Style Guide in March of 2019. We've talked about the interviews that went into the new Safe Recipe Style Guide for video creators, along with the new Food Safety Stock Library, and that excellent presentation from our guest expert, Ellen. It's time for the always popular unveiling of our new resources. It's taken a year to put together, and we're excited to finally share them with you. Now, we'll be sharing the links in a few minutes, so don't panic. You'll be getting an email following the webinar that will have all of the links, so you won't miss anything. Next slide, please, Michelle. So we have two new resources for you. First is the Safe Recipe Style Guide for Video Creators page. And there you're going to find an introduction and all of the information you need about using the updated style guide, including inspirational images on exactly how to tell your food safety story using the different methods that we just showed you in the video. You're also going to find tips on how to create your own stock footage library of food safety steps. Things like hand washing, washing counters, utensils, and cutting boards can all be done together and then edited into multiple videos so that you only have to record them once. But of course, you're still going to perform them when you're making your videos. You're still going to do your food safety steps. You just only have to record it once. Our second resource, so because it's a lot easier to just record it once. So yes, Michelle's way ahead of me. Next slide. Our resources in the Food Safety Stock Library, where you're going to find the video we just showed you, and then a short explanation of how to use the new Food Safety Stock Library and the library itself. So in the Food Safety Stock Library, you will find approximately 600 images and 100 short video clips. Here's how it works. First, there are zip files arranged by food safety steps in the Safe Recipe Style Guide for video creators. These include baking, hand washing, cross-contamination, temperature, and produce. Next slide, please. Under each food safety step, you'll find even more choices. Every topic gives you a choice of both stock videos and short video clips. Most of these are unedited to allow you the flexibility of using images in a way that works for your safe recipe videos. For example, under produce, you'll find an 8-second video clip of scrubbing sweet potatoes. If you only need 3 seconds, you can shorten it in the editing process when you add it to your recipe. If you only need something for 1 or 2 seconds, you might want to use one of these stock images instead. Next slide, please. You'll also see that in photos that have hands in them, you have a choice of 2 different hand models. And I feel like the host of an infomercial when I say, but wait, there's more. Next slide, please. You'll also be able to add your own text or logo as needed. If adding text isn't your thing, we have created images and video clips ready to go with the steps already included. Next slide, please. We also have a few generic photos of things like digital thermometers with different temperatures displayed. And we also have those same temperatures without any images, so that if you're not making a turkey burger, you can still give someone the proper temperature. Now, there's a link also to a content license agreement available on the library webpage. This will make it easier for those of you in health departments or other organizations that require clearance before using resources. So as you can see, we've tried to give you as many choices as possible. And the best part is you can download them all for free. You can download just one zip file that has the types of images you need, or you can download them all. Now you will be asked, and this information is on the web page, but you will be asked to fill out some basic information before you download, and then you'll be directed to the library download page. Now, if you leave that download page and return to download on a different day or on a different device, you will be asked to provide that information again. But if you bookmark the page with the zip files on it, you can avoid filling out the information twice. We do ask that you consider making a donation if you access these files, and your support will help us to maintain and keep these resources free of charge for anyone to access. If you have any questions about using the library after you've checked it out, you can send an email to mysaferecipe@fightback.org. That email address is also on those web pages. So those will be available. We will definitely make sure you have everything that you need. We know that this isn't a comprehensive list of everything that could be included in the library, but we do expect to continue on these, or to continue to build on these resources. So stay tuned throughout the year for announcements and new additions. In just a couple of minutes, we'll be sharing the web addresses where you'll be able to find these wonderful new resources. Next slide, please. But first, we have another question for you. I could go on all day about this subject, so we better ask the questions before I get carried away. Our second poll question is, do you plan to use the food safety stock library? Yes, you're going to use it all. Yes, you plan to only use video clips. You prefer, or you're going to use just the image clips. You're not sure yet, or you don't plan on using the resources. So while you're filling out the poll, if you have any questions for Katie, Ellen, or me, you can drop them in the Q&A, because our next, we'll be moving on to the Q&A. And if you have any comments or you're looking for any links, then check out the chat and Katie will field questions for us. So Michelle, do we have a poll result yet? Oh, excellent. So we have 41% of you already planning to use. That is great. And then 52% of you aren't quite sure yet. I think once you see the resources, you're just gonna go crazy with it. You'll be making videos of everything. So, we also want to thank the people that helped us with putting together all of this information so that we could create these new resources and bring them to you. And so next slide. So do we have any questions, Katie?
Yes, we do. We have a number of questions. So the first one I'm gonna put out there, and either Ellen or Leslie can answer this. It says, our health department does not currently produce videos, but would like to. Are there any trainings you would recommend on specifically how to create and edit videos? Are there any good free editing tools that are easy to use but have a lot of functionality? So they're looking for recommendations on trainings for editing and creating videos and any editing tools that you might recommend.
So Ellen, do you have any that you have found helpful?
Nothing really comes to mind. We use pretty simple, just like the recording on our phone. So if you have any, Leslie, that'd be great.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. I have an iPhone and then a Mac, so I just use iMovie, and they've really made it crazy simple now to add all of those things. And when you combine that with the prompts that we've created in the new stock library, it's really easy to slide things in and out. What you're really looking for when you're looking is you just want to make sure that whatever you're going to create in whatever type of software you use, that it's going to create an MP4 file, because those are the files that you can edit together. So in other words, if you take an image or a video clip from us, which is, JPEG and PNG files for still photos, and then MP4 files for video, as long as they have those letters at the end, you can almost use those in any software. And I'm trying to think if Canva now allows you, because lots of people use Canva, I think, for some of their infographics. And I cannot remember if Canva also does video now, but
I think there's a number of people adding their recommendations in the comments. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. I'm seeing a bunch of different options there. So check that out too if you're looking for a software to use to edit videos.
It's been great in the chat to see how excited everyone is and all the questions that are coming in.
Okay, this is a question specifically for Ellen. Are you finding that people are searching TikTok instead of other resources like Google or Facebook for food safety info? Is it generationally based?
Yeah. Hey, Courtney. So we are, from what I have seen, I don't think it's necessarily that people are going to TikTok to find food safety or information or recipes in the same way that like you would for Pinterest. Like to me, sometimes Pinterest is more the go-to if you're actively looking for recipes. I think with TikTok, it's that people they may be interested in recipes. And so they view those, view the videos. And then with the algorithm that TikTok has, it means that they're seeing more. So that I think as you view more videos and then as you engage with more videos, I think that's what really drives it. And then especially with like the food safety angle of it, as they start following us and seeing our videos, it might cause them to see more. So I don't know that it's necessarily using TikTok as a means for it. It's just kind of whatever they're interested in. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Ellen. Okay, this could go to any of us. Is there a chart or easy reference for each social media platform about the audience or video links that you're aware of or that you go to?
So about every 6 months, and this is just something that I do outside of the work that I do for the partnership, but about every 6 months, I literally just Google what the algorithms in particular on social media channels. I'll just say, just looking for an update. And there's a lot of really great blog posts out there by smaller bloggers who run, web design companies and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I just go and I do a Google search and you can usually find one or two that you like that you can bookmark and go back to them. But I think personally, and maybe Ellen would say the same, that you do need to check regularly because the social media platforms change how they show people information on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. And I think I just saw Alexandria mention this too, Hootsuite. So I know Candace Christian and our team looks to Hootsuite a lot for kind of those metrics, and that's really helpful to see.
Yeah, and Hootsuite does a blog, so you don't actually have to be using Hootsuite. And Hootsuite, for anyone that doesn't know, it's a way that it's a scheduler for all your social media. So if you have multiple social media channels, if you're using Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest, you can have all of your posts scheduled and to go out at times that you're set. But even if you choose not to use a scheduler like Hootsuite, they do have a really great blog.
There's a number of questions about how to create the videos. So one of them is there any special equipment that's used to create the videos? I know we mentioned cell phones, but.
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say, we personally don't use a lot of equipment. Like, so we have one of the ring light things that you can attach your phone to, since we are using mostly phones, that can help with the lighting. And then of course holds your actual phone. So that's what we primarily rely on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Good lighting is number one. And those ring lights are great and they're really inexpensive. And then for myself, I've done videos where if I need two angles, where I need one where people can see my face and people can see my hands, I just use two devices like a laptop and my phone. And then it's easy to edit together.
Okay, related question. This might be hard to answer, I have a feeling. About how long does it take to make these videos on average? Like 5 hours or just 1 minute?
So Ellen, what do you think?
Yeah, hopefully this does not sound like a cop out, but it depends. So yeah, I mean, I think it's with something, and I would recommend maybe starting out with this is like, especially if you're starting out with like a short message, that could be something that's, only a few takes. And so it might only take you like 10 minutes or so, but we're mostly finding that, it usually takes probably 15 to 20 minutes to make something. If you're doing something really elaborate, and you're, doing the recipe, it's probably going to take you longer, but hopefully not 5 hours.
Yeah. The only time that I would say it might take you 5 hours if you put something in the slow cooker. And in that instance, you might want to make you know, like 2 batches of something, where you actually, if something has to cook for a long time, you make that ahead. And then when you're making your video, you show the prep for that. And then that way you don't, because it can be very difficult to start to make a recipe and have all the equipment and everything and put together, and then have to wait 5 hours for something to, you know, cook in the slow cooker. So yeah, the answer is definitely, it depends. So I would say for me, making full recipe videos, again, in work that I don't, that in some of my other work, is probably maybe 1 to 2 hours from start to finish. And that includes making the recipe, getting all the equipment set up, and that kind of stuff. So.
Thank you both for that answer. Are the stock images in the public domain, Leslie?
They are free to use, and there is a license agreement. I'm not sure if that's, if, just to clarify your question, are they out there somewhere other than with us? No, but are they free for you to use? Yes, they are.
And a related question, Leslie. How would you recommend we give credit to your video clips and photos in our videos?
So there's a couple ways to do that. You can actually, in the videos, you can add just sort of like a little watermark, you know, like a little, you know, thank you to PFSE, or just some kind of little, it would be courtesy partnership for food safety education is how you would word that, just as a little watermark somewhere. Or you can actually put it when you post, you can tag us. So.
Okay. Question about hashtags. Are there any hashtags that you would like to see that are unique to this project or initiative? And Ellen, you can throw in any hashtags that you like to use with your videos too.
I'll let you go first, Ellen.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it kind of, so it depends. So I think there's the one on TikTok that's the hashtag FYP. It's like for your, like, as you're scrolling through. But then there's also, of course, just like the seasonal ones that I mentioned, hashtag food safety, hashtag food science, especially if you're wanting to highlight more of the like the recipe and food science side of it. Sometimes we'll do, especially if we're doing something that might relate to a holiday or like a national day of XYZ, we'll put that in. Sometimes if we see that a hashtag is trending, we'll try to incorporate it in some ways. So some of that is just keep paying attention to like what we, you know, what you're doing. So like an example with the infant formula one was hashtag parents of TikTok. So maybe they aren't necessarily seeing like the food safety ones, but they're seeing the parent ones. So really any way you can incorporate food into the hashtag is good.
Yeah, and I would say from the partnerships perspective, hashtag food safety, hashtag PFSE. And then if you're posting on your actual social media channels, which is where you'd be using, is if you actually tag us. So on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and Pinterest, or no, not Pinterest, but on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, I think we're Fight Back. And then on Instagram, we are safe.recipes. So we would love to see you, you know, tag us on anything you post, mostly because I want to see it. Makes me really excited. I get giddy.
I think we'll just do a couple more questions here. So if you have any, make sure you get them in. As a resource, is there an outline of a written recipe with safety plans in it, with safety steps?
So Katie, do you want to take that one?
Sure, yeah. There's the written guide itself that you can download, and that's at saferecipeguide.org. We can throw that in the chat again. And on the saferecipeguide.org website, there are a number of sample recipes that already have the food safety steps in them that you can look at. We also have 2 cookbooks that are available that have examples of what it looks like with the safe recipe steps available. And to cover another question, yes, the cookbooks are downloadable to print too. So you can view them both online and download them.
Yep. And our most recent cookbook, The Healthy Lunch, does include, to re-answer a question from earlier, it does include nutritional information, and that cookbook is also available in Spanish.
Okay, just like I said, just a couple more questions. This is related to video editing. This says, since I'm not familiar with videography like this, I'm assuming, do you make the video and then speed it up via editing?
Yes.
Yeah.
It may depend on where you're doing the editing, but usually it's something like playback speed.
Oh, this is for Ellen. Who's the target audience in general you try and target with your videos?
Yeah, so I mean, it kind of varies with what we're putting out. So, for example, that informational one about the infant recall was definitely targeted to parents or caretakers of children. And so, but I think with recipe ones, you know, it may depend on if we're kind of what I was talking about in the presentation. It's like if we're trying to develop, to show something for people who are kind of developing and young cooks, you know, that might be something we try to hit a little bit more. Something that we also try to do is, just because we are like science-based programming, we really try to get to the people who are really interested in the science and understanding the why. So it's probably going to be people who are a little bit more like have an interest, a little bit more of an interest in food science or food in general, or people who just like science. And then of course, just foodies in general.
Thank you, Ellen. One quick question also for you, Ellen. Could you drop the links to the social media platforms that you post on? I
Sure.
think everyone wants to see them, including me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, oh, okay, one final question. Last question, everybody. For the safe recipe style guide in general, for first recipe steps, in addition to washing hands, should there be something about ensuring a sanitary work surface, or can we take that for granted?
I think that's a good question for you, Katie.
Yeah. So the safe recipe style guide, does it include it? Now I'm blanking, Leslie.
Oh, it does include washing counters, and utensils and
Yes, that's right. So like in the guidance for the guide, it tells you, so it gives you the language to use for each of the steps, like washing counters or washing hands, and then it tells you the recommended places that you would use it. So absolutely, you can use both washing hands and keeping surfaces at the start, but you also would want to use them after, for instance, dealing with raw egg or raw meats or things like that. Okay.
All right. Great.
Thank you, Ellen, for answering all the questions, and Leslie, and we'll do a quick wrap up and then end the webinar.
Yep. So I know you've been waiting for this, is how to access these new resources. If you go to saferecipeguide.org, there are 2 new buttons at the top of the page. One is for the Safe Recipe Style Guide for video creators, and the other is for the Food Safety Stock Library. Now remember, you'll get an email tomorrow with all of these links, so we're definitely going to make sure you don't miss anything. But the Safe Recipe Style Guide for video creators, it has those safety steps, like Katie was just talking about, along with visual cues. And just some information about creating your own stock library. And then the food safety stock library itself has all the files, zip files that you can download. And there's lots of great stuff in there. So can we have the next slide, please? So if you're looking for brand new safe recipes, we have a newsletter that comes out once a month called Cooking Times. It is a safe recipe, so it has all the safety steps included. And there's also usually a little piece of food trivia and then a little bit more information specific to one particular food safety topic. You can sign up at getcookingtimes.fightback.org/home. And our next issue comes out next week, so you won't want to miss that. Next slide, please. You can help us be top rated if you go to greatnonprofits.org and search for the Partnership for Food Safety Education and just leave a 1-minute review to let everyone know that you appreciate us as much as we appreciate you. Next slide, please. So this year, if you didn't know, is the partnership's 25th anniversary of collaboration in food safety education. The big day is May 12th. We are going to have a special anniversary webinar in May. And we thank you for your support and help in keeping families healthy. So, and you should also stay tuned because we have lots of great stuff coming up. So we also want to make a great, big, huge thank you to our contributing partners. Without our contributing partners, the partnership would not be able to bring all of these amazing resources to our backfighters. Next slide, please. As a final reminder for the CEUs, the links have been in the comments. You are going to get that email tomorrow. Or you can check out fightback.org under the resources tab, and educators looking for NCHEC have a deadline of April 27th to fill out the questionnaire. And our final slide, please. Thank you all so much for coming today. It's been really great seeing everyone's excitement and having all of the questions. You can reach any of the panelists at these email addresses. And then there's also an email address on the website at saferecipeguide.org where you can email questions about the new resources. And as I said, then you'll also be getting an email tomorrow with all of these links, so you won't have to miss a thing. Thank you all so much for coming and have a great afternoon.